For older generations, millennials and Gen Z seek to have a soft life, meaning that their life consists of less discomfort, less effort, more community-related activities, and less career centrism, sort of the complete opposite of ambition. One article heavily criticized the idea of soft life, because according to the writer, the term means that people stop sacrificing and choose a life solely consisting of pleasantries. But is this not what everyone strives to enjoy after retirement? The following story illustrates this point. As a man walked into a field, he spotted another one sitting under a tree, strumming a guitar and lazing in the sun. The man approached the other and inquired, "What are you doing?" "I'm just sitting under this tree, singing, relaxing, and enjoying the sunshine," came the reply. "How can you be so lazy? I have a 16-hour job. I work all the time. I'm never home, and I barely have time to spend with my family. It's a tremendous sacrifice, but it's worth it. I make a lot of money." "And why do you do that?" the man said, looking up, delighting into the sun's warmth. "That's a silly question. I work hard so I can retire and go on a vacation with my family." "And what will you do on a vacation?" the other man replied. "I'll be carefree, sit under a tree, relax, sing songs, and bask in the sunshine." The seated man smiled. "That's exactly what I'm doing right now." Hello everyone, and welcome to this very special edition of Through Conversations podcast. In this solo episode, I explore what every older generation gets wrong about millennials and Gen Z, and how can we all benefit from hearing what younger generations want to do with their lives, or at least create space for these areas in their lives. This is also a chapter that comes in my upcoming book. More details on the book itself will be released later on, but this is a very special topic because I myself am part of Generation Z, and I am experiencing all of these situations that are happening within the workplace, and also around how we can honor our time on Earth better now that the workplace is being disrupted by technologies such as artificial intelligence. And so with that, let's get into it. Gen Z is being criticized within the workplace as lazy and difficult to work with. But many Gen Zers have expressed that they are not difficult to work with, but instead had enough of the bullshit within the workplace. Long hours, low wages, and no fulfillment at work. I believe all of my generation, including myself, understand that there is no such thing as a life without sacrifice, and enjoyment follows hard work. This is true for everyone around the world. But if these do not translate into real payoffs, meaning high wages, high quality of life, and opportunities to flourish, then it is just logical for us to feel friction against older generations and the modern definition of a workplace. Now, are we truly looking for a soft life? Is this what Generation Z wants to do with their lives? It's not that we don't want a challenge in life. It's the challenge in and of itself that we want to change. For all of our lives, the challenge meant finding our place in the system, blending with everyone, joining the pack so our survival was ensured. It meant that we had to absorb life's predetermined protocol of how our time on Earth would play out, and we had to serve as shields to this protocol, meaning you get a job after you graduate with your degree, you work at a job for 40 years, try to get married around the first years of your job, have stable income, have a stable life, and then die. Soft life is exactly what we want to achieve after retirement, and we yearn for the beauty of ordinary moments. Why not choose to prioritize community, connections, relationships, mental health, overall health during our 20s? Perhaps this anti-ambition is the cusp of what ambition in life should mean. Can't we reverse engineer our lives so our foundation is stronger and our careers serve as a positive externality of that rock-solid grounding? In other words, can we choose mindfully to live a life that puts our well-being first and the rest second, that comes as a consequence of our well-being? What would the world look like if our work was a result of how we feel about life, rather than how we feel as a result of our work? I believe our work, our ambitions would improve tenfold when we no longer rely on weekends to catch up with our favorite activities, meeting new people, building relationships, engaging in our crafts, enjoying the sunshine, and pursuing our creative passions. The aftermath that emerges from that engagement will build a better world for all of us. This would be a drastic shock in our system, of course. We would build a society based on sincere, creative pursuits rather than transactional, mechanical routines. We would strip away all the deception from the system and build an entirely new one based on what we love. Plus, when we awaken to the realization that career does not equal life, we put into practice some of our deepest traits as a collective species that have evolved for millions of years. We want to take care of each other. When we work at jobs that drain our energy, we inevitably become an atomized society based on animosity and skepticism. No one has the energy to collaborate, to communicate, or to cooperate with one another. We would rather rest and charge up like machines waiting for our next shift. And when we treat our career as a function of our life and as a function of how we honor our time on earth, we also awaken to a deeper realization. We are nothing without others. In one email sent to himself, the legendary Apple founder Steve Jobs described how he would be nothing without his tribe. In his words, and I quote, "I did not breed or perfect the seeds. I do not make any of my own clothing. I speak a language I did not invent or refine. I did not discover the mathematics I use. I am protected by freedoms and laws I did not conceive of or legislate and do not enforce or adjudicate. I am moved by music I did not create myself. When I needed medical attention, I was helpless to help myself survive. I did not invent the transistor, the microprocessor, object-oriented programming, or most of the technology I work with. I love and admire my species, living and dead, and I'm totally dependent on them for my well-being." Sent from my iPad. But when we are inside the hamster wheel, we constantly forget how amazing and awe-fueling our species truly is, and how much we need to rely on one another. Right now, I am speaking and writing these words on a computer I didn't make, on a software program I didn't create, sitting in a building I didn't build, drinking a coffee I didn't make, speaking and writing words I didn't create, I just put together, and recording this in a camera, in 2 cameras, I didn't create. In other words, our greatness is only a function of our collective greatness. We are literally standing on the shoulders of giants, and we depend on each other more than we think. That realization becomes crystal clear when we have time to expand the size and scope of our time on Earth, and can reflect on the things that truly matter, such as giving back to our community. But when we're working on a job that is making us feel drained, out of energy, that we're not feeling that it's paying off in real terms, in higher quality of life, in building stable relationships with our peers, in earning higher wages that allow us to flourish as individuals, we cannot truly grasp on how immensely important and essential it is to give back to our community and to be part of our community. There is this ancient Jewish concept called tikkun olam, which translates into repairing the world. This one states that all of us have responsibility to repair and improve the world, which is deeply entrenched in our true nature as a species, given that we are the leaders of nature and we have a sense of agency in life. And all these actions lead us to finding lasting fulfillment. Nicholas Christakis, a brilliant sociologist and professor of social and natural science at Yale University, also a previous guest on the show, studies how our species is wired for goodness. Professor Christakis is the author of several books, including one of my favorite books of all time, which is Blueprint: The Evolutionary Origins of a Good Society. Christakis argues that our social nature, which includes our capacity for empathy and cooperation, is encoded in our evolutionary history. He argues that without our capacity for cooperation, we would have not been able to thrive as a species. In his book, he points out to evidence that suggests when cultures are built upon the values of working together to accomplish complex tasks, sharing resources with one another, and taking responsibility for the young and the elderly, they tend to thrive more than cultures based on violence, animosity, and aggression. Of course, Christakis acknowledges that we are also capable of violence, but everything points to the fact that our nature is one of cooperation and kindness. There are several moral values that most societies share between them, and this universality is further evidence of a shared human nature that values cooperation, fairness, and empathy. One such example is the Golden Rule, which states that we should treat others as we would like to be treated, a value that Confucianism coins as Ren, which derives from Confucius' statement, "What you don't want done to yourself, do not do to others." In Hinduism, the concept of ahimsa, or non-violence, is a core principle, the idea of treating others with compassion and never engaging with others through violent actions. In Judaism, the Hebrew Bible contains a verse that says, "Love your neighbor as yourself." And in Islam, the Prophet Muhammad is reported to have said, "None of you believes until he lives for his brother what he loves for himself." For Christakis, this universality proves that our nature is embedded with love and cooperation. In the field of neuroscience, strong evidence exists that our brain is designed to incentivize cooperation with each other. When we help each other, our brains release certain chemicals such as dopamine and oxytocin, which are linked with pro-social behaviors and positive emotions. Known as the helper's high, many people commit their lives to altruism due to the positive feelings they receive from acts of kindness. Further, Christakis argues that this positive response happens when we help others beyond our social groups. Studies have shown that people feel pleasure when they see strangers helping strangers, further strengthening his argument that our capacity for empathy and altruism is not limited to our tribe, but to all members of our species. However, when we are caught up in an empty chase, in empty 9-to-5 shift with meaningless jobs, meaningless tasks, we don't have the luxury to reflect on how we can be a force for good and the responsibility we have to heal the world. So when people start living an anti-ambitious life that prioritizes their well-being and values their life over their careers, the individualistic chase for greatness ceases to exist and the void becomes filled with a deeper sense of community. Dar LaBeach, a once successful marketing professional who made up to $150,000 a year, decided to make a drastic change in his life when he was laid off during the pandemic. While working, he reported feeling stressed, anxious, disenchanted, and tired of living for others rather than for himself. He suddenly realized that life could be more than feeling drained as a result of his job, regardless of the money left over on the table. His decision allowed him to travel more and have a career simultaneously without allowing his career to dominate his life. LaBeach traveled to Mexico and slowly began to realize that he had a keen sense of community and helping others. He began to become involved in social activism, helping to raise awareness of women's rights. Regardless of how small the community was, he wanted to make sure he was actively involved. When we start taking care of ourselves by listening to what we truly need, not what we believe we need, but truly need, and once we feel taken care of, goodness automatically kicks in, even if our actions initially seem self-centered. When we allow space between us and our preconceived notions of what life should look like, we allow our truest feelings and intuitions to emerge. When we act in such a selfish manner, we are paradoxically acting in the most selfless way we can. Sometimes, when we allow time to reveal the answers to us and give ourselves enough cushion to find what moves us, we can then move forward and start healing the world because our gas tank is filled with positivity. Sometimes, all we really need to heal is space to prioritize our well-being. And remember that by well-being, I mean deciding to live an authentic life. This mindful quest enables us to discover the door to which we are the key. No, I don't believe I am arguing in favor of living a life without unpleasant situations and challenges. On the contrary, I believe that hard work pays off in the right way and that good fortune comes to those willing to sacrifice, to do the right sacrifices, to choose the right things to work for. I'm advocating for authenticity, choosing what we want to sacrifice on our own terms. I'm offering a new set of tools to evaluate the hidden costs of our choices to give us a much needed perspective on our decisions and their consequences. Not to see in hindsight, after 40 years of working at a job we hate, how depressed we are and how little life we feel within ourselves. This is also a good moment to remember that often society always tells you the benefit but fails to disclose the cost of working at a job we don't like, of earning wages that are not sufficient to live a higher quality of life and to feel drained in our lives and in our jobs. But we are slowly waking up to the idea that we are not willing to pay the costs of living an inauthentic life just for the sake of a paycheck, for the sake of praise, or for the sake of a promotion. And Gen Z, as well as millennials, are spearheading this movement that we want to create meaningful work for all of us, not just Gen Z and millennials, but for all generations, for future generations as well. We're also unwilling to sacrifice our youth just to keep an economic machine going. This trait is more than unfair. It is a crime against our time on Earth. We're waking up, but we still need an extra push. We still live on autopilot, cruising through 2/3 of our lives just because we were sold the stability card. But for all of us, we know deep within us that formula will never truly fulfill us. Many have told us that part of living a rewarding life is sacrificing, often including our own thoughts and emotions. Some are even willing to sacrifice their own sense of self. I believe we can change that curse. There is no sense in buying the goods without asking for the costs. And I am not referring to financial costs. Being wealthy is very costly. Being conventionally successful against our true selves is also very costly. Being labeled as anti-ambitious for the right type of ambitions, your ambitions, is perhaps the most ambitious goal we must aim for. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to share it with your loved ones, subscribe on Apple Podcast, subscribe on Spotify, and give a thumbs up on YouTube. Take care.